South Africans are currently grappling with up to 10 hours of daily power cuts. Eskom has blamed this on a high number of breakdowns at power stations and limited emergency reserves. For more on the story, we are joined by University of Johannesburg Physics Department Professor Hartmut Winkler. Good evening to you, Professor Winkler, and thanks for your time. Firstly, are we at the worst case scenario? Because when we look at Eskom's own estimates around what the energy availability factor for this period would be, we seem to be below that threshold, and already it was a bleak picture in terms of what the consequences were.
Yes, I'm afraid that for the next couple of years, the Eskom availability factor is probably just going to steadily go down. Now, at the moment, we are in a particularly bad situation, and I'm sure it will get better again, but of course it could get worse before it gets better in the short term, because we just don't know when exactly these breakdowns are going to occur. If a breakdown is happening quite now at one of the major power stations, then they would be forced to go to a higher stage. So we can just really hope that they gradually fix some of the ones that they're working on right now, which is clearly what Eskom is counting on, given that they're telling us that they're going to move us down to stage 5 tomorrow sometime and then go down a bit. But unfortunately, that is a situation. There's just too many of their units which should be up, which are down in the long term. And that includes units such as Kusile, 3 of the units at Kusile. That amounts to about almost 3 stages of load shedding just because of that. And these are not old ones. The Kusile ones are brand new. They were very expensive, and those ones shouldn't be breaking down. As far as the other ones are concerned, the ones which have been working for Eskom for 20, 30, 40 years, those ones can understand. They are getting to the point where they should actually be retired. But Eskom can't do that right now simply because they don't have alternatives.
We were told that when it comes to stage 7, at least as has been reported in some media, that there was a very late last-minute scramble to avoid stage 7, and the result of that was to delay the maintenance work at Koeberg that was set to get underway. How close are we to not only stage 7 load shedding, but even potentially stage 8?
Yes, I don't know if that's exactly the reason, but certainly they did delay the shutdown of Koeberg. Koeberg has 2 units. Each one amounts to about 1 stage of load shedding, and the one was supposed to now go into an upgrade, which is supposed to last until June. After that's finished, Eskom will try and use both Koeberg stations for the winter months, and then afterwards try and upgrade the remaining ones. The reason they're doing that is because Eskom needs to try and still be able to use Koeberg after 2024. If they don't do those upgrades, they're going to use their license to do that. So while on the one hand it might give us short relief now to postpone this job at Koeberg, it will have to be done somewhere, and we don't want to cut it too fine, because the situation is going to be no better next year either. So I'm afraid that with this Koeberg operation scheduled for the next year or so, that's 1 stage of load shedding that we going to have to factor in always. And then it's just the situation, what's going to happen to the other ones. There's no really short-term solution to some of the units which have got major problems. The slight relief will probably come in April or so, when Eskom is going to have money again to operate some of the gas units. But that's a very expensive way of generating electricity. That's also why Eskom has run out of those funds so soon. And so it's something that you don't really want to do, especially if you're in a sort of financial situation Eskom is in. If they had those power stations available now, I suppose they would do it if it really gets to stage 8. Then they will use those gas stations, but they're trying to avoid that still at the moment, which is also a reason why we are a little bit worse now than we would be otherwise.
You're bringing me to my next point, Prof. The National Treasury currently under pressure to give Eskom, we're told, about 19 billion rand that it needs to buy diesel if it is to have that additional layer of buffer when it comes to power cuts. What do you think should happen? I mean, if they're given that money, will it make a significant difference to the state of electricity supply that we face now? Or retrospectively, will the buffer that we're anticipating not be worth it in the end?
Yes, that's a difficult question. What costs more, the diesel or the load shedding? I'm not an economist, so I can't really pronounce on that, and that's probably what's going through the finance minister's mind. If it really got to the point where we are in a danger of seeing some sort of a system failure, then I think they would use it. They do have some reserves, but not much. So if you right now asked Eskom to start those gas power stations, they would be able to do so, but they wouldn't be able to run them for a terribly long time. But I think they would if they really got to that sort of an emergency situation. But they won't be able to do what they've been doing over the last year or so, which is simply once you had load shedding, then just to switch on those gas plants and just run and burn the diesel, because, well, they used up their budget in about half the year. And, yeah, and that's where they are now, so they don't have money left for that particular thing. In a sense, the question is also, should we be paying this extra money? It will certainly help some people, but others would say that that money is better spent on some other services. So it's really a question of what is one's priority.
All right. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thanks for your time.